reviving our discipleship. Revival refers to a spiritual awakening from a state of dormancy or stagnation in the life of a Christian. It encompasses the resurfacing of a love for God, an appreciation of God's holiness, a passion for His Word, a passion for His church, a convicting awareness of personal and corporate sin. It's a spirit of humility and a desire to repentance and growth in righteousness. Reviving our discipleship. It invigorates and sometimes deepens a child of God's faith, opening his or her eyes to the truth in a fresh, new way. It generally involves the connotation of a fresh start with a clean slate, making a new beginning of life, lived in obedience to God. Reviving our discipleship breaks the charm and power of the world, which blinds the eyes of men. It generates both the will and power to live in the world, but not of the world. It was Paul who wrote, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, to teach us that through patience and comfort of the Scriptures we might have hope." Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. In the year King Uzziah died, I also saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he did cover his face, and with twain he did cover his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one said to another, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." And the post of the door moved at the one who cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, "Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people with unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, with a live coal in his hand. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, "Lo, thy iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged." Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who shall go for us?" Then said I, "Here am I, send me." Reviving our discipleship. How does God call and commission a prophet? More importantly, how does God call and commission us? How can we revive our discipleship. Well, I think it's interesting in this narrative that before God calls Isaiah, he first says, Isaiah, I need you to see something. Isaiah, I need you to sense something. There's some things, Isaiah, that you need to understand. So Isaiah comes into the temple, and he sees this fantastic vision. What does genuine conversion look like? What must we understand before we can become God's instruments of righteousness? What must we understand before we become his living sacrifices? What are some things we must understand before God can use us? Well, first and foremost, we need to understand that God still rules. I know I'm right about it. Isaiah sees God seated on the throne, high and lifted up. Listen, when we forget this point, it always results in a life of frustration. It always results in a life of disappointment. You see, for the Christian, there can be no genuine happiness. For the Christian, there can be no fulfillment. For the Christian, there can be no meaningful life. There can be no loyal service in the kingdom if we forget that God is the one who's still on the throne. Or if we have enthroned something or someone else. Remember at Mount Sinai, it was God who said, no other gods before me. From the lips of Jesus the Christ, it was love God with all your heart. Love God with all your mind. Love God with all your body. Love God with all your soul. He says, love me more than you love your mother. Love me more than you love your father. Love me more than you love your sister or your brother. Love me more than you love your possessions. Make no mistake about it, church. There will be no call from God until we see him on the throne. In order to revive our discipleship, we must know that regardless of what happens, no matter what forces may oppose us, God is still God.